Maestro, what would this be, number 5 or 6?
It's our 7th festival.
7th festival, Mozart Festival.
So my first season I started with Tchaikovsky and continued with Beethoven. Went from Beethoven to Brahms, from Brahms to Dvorak, which makes it number 4. Then we opened the Thomann Center and we started a Strauss festival for the very reason that Strauss was very much linked, and that was our 75th anniversary season, to our founder, Max Reiter. That was number 5. Number 6 was the first one that was not a real composer festival, but a thematic festival, the Las Americas. And this season, number 7, will be the Mozart Festival for very obvious reasons. I mean, it's Mozart. Yeah. It's safe. It explains it itself. And
perfection from heaven.
Yeah, and exactly. And we didn't really play enough Mozart at the Majestic for the simple reason that the Majestic, just the size of the hall, the way it is, the stage is set, and the acoustics, it doesn't really allow the subtleties and the nuances and the finesse of Mozart resonate in the hall, as it will here. So we are rediscovering this repertoire, or we are going deeper in this repertoire and through this Mozart Festival.
Well, I can't think of a more beautiful way to start a festival of Mozart than with his wonderful aria for orchestra and for voice, Ave Verum Corpus.
Ave Verum Corpus. Yeah, and this is, of course, the introduction then to the Fauré Requiem. So I combine in this festival again other composers with Mozart. Fauré, of course, his Requiem, I think, was definitely written with the impression of the Mozart Requiem. The idea of the Mozart Requiem was very different, very, very different, very French in sound. The way he treats the orchestra with basically completely leaving out the violins. They come back in later, but it's basically the highest voices in the strings as the dominating part of the viola section.
And the Ave Verum Corpus was written in the same year that Mozart died,
yeah.
1791.
Exactly.
And so
we're looking at
interesting.
Yeah, of course. We're looking at at a Requiem reference here, and then of course his only symphony in a minor key. Well, there's another G minor.
26.
There's another G minor that was written. So he has 2 G minor symphonies that he has written.
This is the grand.
This is the grand, and all other 41 or 40 symphony, in this case 39. But there's a rediscovery of another one again. So you never know what anybody finds somewhere. Are written in major keys. Yeah, the G minor symphony, I think we've heard it everywhere, and it's abused in commercials and in pop versions or whatever you want, but it is a masterpiece of no comparison, and yet you don't hear it on the concert stage as often as you might.
You're 41.
Want to.
You hear Jupiter.
Yeah.
All the time.
Not all the time, but more often. But definitely G minor is probably, one of his, it is a true masterpiece, not just because of that key, but the way, and he rewrote the piece too, when he discovered the clarinet as really an interesting instrument, the color of it, and so we have 2 versions. There's the version without, and there's the version with the clarinets, but I think the clarinets are extremely important in this.
When I was in New York recently, I went to the Morgan Library because they had some Mozart scores in his hand on the wall to look at.
Yeah.
There were no corrections.
No, Mozart...
They were just, as they do in the movie, they say he was taking dictation.
From God. Yeah, I mean, the composition process of Mozart, and actually very similar to Richard Strauss, was happening in his head. He didn't use sketches. He didn't make any corrections. He basically wrote down what he had composed before. He was also able to, as a kid, you know, listen to. He listened to a mass at church and would write it down at home, the entire thing of an hour of music. I don't know how that is possible. I think it's unfair. And it's unfair, and that's why you know, we all know this play, Mozart and Salieri, that basically influenced the film Amadeus. Yeah, there is something there that is quite inexplicable with Mozart. What makes him very unique, there is a link to something else that goes beyond normal. Beethoven we can relate to in a very different way because he was a struggling person, and everything he achieved in life, he really struggled through it. And I mean, like, Beethoven's corrections are like crazy. And Mozart is just this, yeah. Though I think Mozart, again, also struggled enormously in life. And
with money.
Well, with money, he spent a lot of money.
Lack of recognition.
Well, I think
he finally got it.
He got recognition. I think, don't underestimate it. He also was paid actually pretty well for his time. If you look at the sums he was paid for, his commissions were actually quite extraordinary. He just could not handle it. You know, he would, you know, and he wasn't interested in. And I think he died at 35, being 92 years old. I mean, I think he lived a life at double or triple speed. There's no question about it.
So you don't think that if he had lived to 70, we would have seen who knows what kind of music?
This is always the question. With Mozart, I mean, he was so productive, and his style was so defined at the end. You know, you see his style, the way he developed it, where could it go? I mean, it was really. You look at Don Giovanni, the Requiem, and the Magic Flute, and all of this. You know, where could it lead? I don't know. Yes, of course, it would have been fantastic.
Would he have been a romantic?
I don't know. I mean, there's still a way to go. I think Beethoven was the catalyst for changing all of this. If you really think about it, Mozart did not influence other composers as much as Beethoven did. Or Haydn. You know, Haydn influenced more composers than Mozart did. Mozart was just very unique in his being. And I think it was this time that was meant for him and this place. And there he stands extremely unique. So by building the programs, indirectly everybody is influenced by Mozart. Directly, not so much.
Well, Maestro, what a great explanation for the festival, the Mozart Festival, and how much we're going to be looking forward to the next 6 weeks of his music, starting on January the 6th and 7th here at the HEB Performance Hall. It'll be Mozart's 40th Symphony, the Ave Verum Corpus, and the Fauré Requiem. Thank you, Maestro.
Thank you.